makes a great leader? Have you ever thought about that? I mean, all of us lead in different ways, whether we realize it or not. And there's been thousands of books written about leadership, and we can find examples in history, and there's blog posts, and there's podcasts, all talking about what it takes to be a great leader. But I'm not really sure there's any one way to be a great leader. Everybody has the opportunity to lead in their own way, whether it's big, small, whether it's behind the scenes or out in front. And so today I thought it would be interesting just to look at two different kinds of leadership that I experienced on a trip to Africa a few years ago. And they're two different styles, and they had vastly different effects, and I was on the short end of one of them. So I hope you enjoy. So a number of years ago, my wife and I had the opportunity to take a trip to South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana to visit some family there. And while we were there, we really wanted to do this really cool rafting trip. In Zimbabwe, you can raft down this river called the Zambezi River, the mighty Zambezi. And why this rafting trip is so cool is because it is 21 class 3, 4, and 5 rapids all packed into this one-day trip, which is pretty awesome. If you're into rafting, this is just like the coolest one-day trip that you could do. And so we were excited to go, so we signed up. And while we're waiting, they're showing videos of previous rafting trips. And I just loved watching these people head down into these big rapids and then just get flipped out of their boat, or they'd get folded in half. The raft just folds and people are flying everywhere. It was just so cool. And so you knew that they had video all along the trip, that it was going to video you as you were doing your stuff. So I'm already planning out, okay, make sure that I look good on the video. I don't want to look like an idiot rafting in here on the video. I want to be one of the cool guys. So after watching the orientation videos, they take us down to the river. We get in the boat. We had 7 people in our boat. There's 6 passengers, tourists like us, and then 1 guide. And our guide's name is Costa. Now, Costa lives in a local village, and he's one of the lucky ones. He actually has a well-paying job. At the time, and still in Zimbabwe, they were having huge economic crisis, shortages of food, and especially hyperinflation. In fact, when we were on the trip, I went and bought a bottle of Coke from a local store. I paid with $1 American, and what I got back in change was a $1 billion bill from Zimbabwe. So hyperinflation, but just crazy. People were just starving. But Costa's has a great job, and he's our guide, and he's fantastic. So as we get into the boat, we first start in this calm water, kind of this staging area. And he asks us, has anybody rafted before? Has anybody already have experience doing that? Well, I had rafted before, and a couple of the other people had. So I raised my hand enthusiastically, and he said, great, we're going to put you right in this front spot here. Now, if you're in this front spot, you have to really listen to my directions, because there's going to be times when you're going to have to be paddling or dragging, and other people won't be, to get us in the right position. Well, of course, I'm an expert rafter in my mind, so I thought, great, I'm the perfect guy for this job. So I'm the leader of our boat as far as the passengers go. In our boat with us, we've got a couple other people. So my wife is with me, Sarah, and then also my parents were with us on the trip, and my dad takes the other front spot because he's a great rafter in his mind, just like I was. My mom right behind him, and then right behind our 2 groups on either side, we had these 2 young ladies who were actually visiting from New York. They were college students, and we didn't find out until much later that one of them didn't know how to swim, and it seems very odd to be doing this type of adventure without being able to swim, but whatever. So as we're in the calm water, Costa's preparing us, and he's telling us how we're going to paddle to maneuver our raft in just the right position to hit the right rapids. Because if you get into the wrong spot, you can get in some real trouble. Not only can you flip, but you can get caught in undertows that can pull you under. And so he would have us practice, and he would do it like this. He'd say, okay, right 4, and that would mean everybody on the right side of the boat paddle 4 strokes. Left 3, and then sometimes he would say front 2, and that just meant the people in the front would paddle a couple of times. Or sometimes he would just say crease 3, and that meant just me paddle 3 times to get the front of the boat angled just perfect. We practiced this for a while, and for me, being in my mind this great rafter, I thought, okay, yeah, this is boring, this is dumb, like this is for everybody else. I don't really need to hear this. But we went on our way. And so off we head into these rapids. Now as far as the tourists in the boat go, I'm one of the leaders. My dad's the other leader. Costa's the real leader. He's in the back. And we head into these rapids, and let me tell you, they were unbelievable. as you see some of the pictures of them, you can just see being surrounded by just walls of foaming water spraying everywhere. And at times you just head directly towards just a huge rapid. You knew there was a big boulder under there. Oftentimes I would hear Costa yelling, right 3, and our boat would start to turn. And I would just think, what is he doing? This guy is an idiot. We can't turn sideways now. But we're going to hit that rock sideways. We're going to flip. But as we would get closer to that rock, sure enough, we'd be turned sideways, and then a little current from the other side would come and turn us perfectly. See, Costa knew the river really well, so he knew exactly where to put us in the right position so that we could be successful. Now, why do you want to be successful in whitewater rafting? Well, normally the reason to be successful is to not get launched out into the river, right? Well, there's this added problem when you're rafting in Africa, in that if you get launched from the boat and you're in the water, after the rapids stop, there's always a period of calm water. And it would seem like calm water would be the safe place. And it would be, I think, if it weren't for the crocodiles. And as we rafted down, you could see them sunning themselves. You could see them swimming, their little heads and snout kind of meandering through the water. So if you were ever found yourself out of the boat and the water was calm, you needed to get to the boat as quick as possible. The tour company even had guys in kayaks that would try and circle around in the calm water just to beat off any crocodiles that were hungry or might be looking for an easy snack. So staying in the boat was really important on this trip. Well, as we're going, I start to remember, you know what? They're going to have video cameras. I've seen the videos. They're going to have photographers. I need to look really good going into this, so that later on when we purchase the package that has the video and the photos, you have me looking like this awesome rafter. And so we're coming into this big raft. I think this one was called the Seven Ugly Sisters, if I remember right, but it could have also been the Devil's Toilet Bowl. I don't remember, but they all have names. So we're headed in, and before we head in, Costa gives us the option. He always had an option on these. He said, you can go to the left side. That is easy peasy lemon squeezy over there. We could go to the middle. The middle is 50-50. Or you can go to the right side, and that is certain you get wet. Well, we had people in the boat that didn't swim. We thought, okay, being certain to flip, probably not smart, but 50-50, that sounds good. I don't want to go easy peasy lemon squeezy. I would never admit to that. But right down the middle, 50-50. And so we're heading in, and he's giving us the instructions. Right 3, right side paddles. Left 2, left side paddles. We're maneuvering our way through. We get to a point where he says, everybody down, and everybody gets down and holds on. And then he says, Chris, 3. As he looks to me to paddle my 3 times, he realizes something's wrong. I'm not on board with what's going on because I've seen the cameraman over there on the side. And so as everybody else is getting down and I'm supposed to be paddling our boat to get us in this perfect position to hit this rapid, I'm doing this. I've got my hands in the air, I've got the paddle, I'm cheering because what am I doing? Photo shoot. Yeah, the worst thing I could be doing at the moment is trying to draw attention to myself and trying to have the glory of this photo that I want. Well, you can imagine what happens. We hit the rapid just not right, a little bit turned to one side. Now, had I paddled my strokes that only I was supposed to be paddling, had I been a real leader and done what I was supposed to do to keep us safe, we probably would have hit it just fine. Instead, our boat goes down in the pit, hits the rapid offside, flips over. Instantly, pandemonium ensues because you're in this frothing water and you're trying to hang on to the side of the raft that's flipped over, and you're looking around to try and find everybody. And you're trying to do all of it before we get to the calm water because we know what's in the calm water. As we're grabbing onto the boat, we find everybody. We realize we're missing one person. And that one person happened to be my wife. So my brilliant leadership strategy of taking all the attention to myself has now caused us to lose my wife. And if we look back at the video, you see the whole thing play out. You see me coming down into the water. You see me raising my hands, getting the good picture. You see the boat flip. And then you see this little helmet off to the side go zoom, zipped out underwater, way forward past the boat. By the time my wife comes up from the water, she's about 100 yards down the river from us, floating along. right into the calm water where I know that the crocodiles are. Now, everybody ended up fine. Even the girl who couldn't swim was able to grab onto the raft. And my wife didn't get eaten by crocodiles. She's still with us today, which is great. But because of the moment where instead of being a real leader, I wanted to look like a leader. Instead of doing what a leader does, I wanted to look like I was a great leader. And so I was posing for the picture, and I wanted us to just look super cool coming into this rapid. And by trying to have all the attention on myself as this awesome rafter, as this leader, I ended up causing the demise of our whole raft. I had people in the boat that couldn't swim. I had crocodiles waiting to gobble people up potentially. And because I wanted to appear as though I was this star, as though I was the center of attention, I caused this great problem to ensue. I caused our whole boat to flip. That's one kind of leadership. That would be a kind of leadership that I don't feel proud of looking back on it. I did get some pretty awesome pictures that I will remember for forever, but it was at the expense of everybody around me. And not just other tourists, my family, people that I loved and cared about. And that's all because I wanted to have all of the focus on me. It's not a great way to lead. It's not a great way at all. Now, funny story, there was another boat on the river that our guide had told us about. They had come through a couple days before. And this boat had a bunch of Asian tourists. I think they were Japanese if I remember right. And they had never been rafting. They didn't swim. I don't know why they signed up to go on this rafting trip whatsoever. And so the guides decided, well, let's put them in this boat. We've got these two guys from New Zealand. Now, New Zealanders, I think they're just born knowing how to do high adventure, cool stuff. And so they put the New Zealand guys in the lead positions, 1 and 2. They filled the rest of the raft with these Asian tourists, and their guide told them, hey, whatever you see that the New Zealanders doing, just do what they do. Okay, don't worry about anything. Just do what they do, because he couldn't get through to them because of the language barrier. All he could communicate was follow those guys. Well, they come into the first set of rapids, and they're paddling. Their boat goes into a little depression, hits hard, and the two New Zealanders get ejected immediately out the side. Boat pops back up. The Asian guys are still in the boat. They take one look at each other, and they all just bail out the side because the New Zealanders did. That's probably following a leader who you shouldn't be following anyway, but at least they followed instructions, so that was good. Anyway, we finished the trip. It was phenomenal. We pull the boats out of the river. We hike up out of the valley, and Costa and the other guides have some trucks waiting for us to take us back into town. So we're sitting in the back of these trucks in the bed and cruising through the countryside, and we go through these small villages. And everywhere you look in these small villages, you can just tell the depression that's sunk in on everybody with this horrible economic situation. I mean, these people are just starving to death because of what their government's done to them and their country. And there's just not a lot of hope in their eyes. You can just see their heads hanging low. Well, as we're driving, Costa's sitting in the back of the truck right next to me. And everybody that we pass, he goes, hey! And he gives them a thumbs up. And they look up, and they see him, and they give him a thumbs up. And we drive by some other ones, and he'd say, hey! And they'd look up, and he'd thumbs up, and yeah, they'd thumbs up. And he would make eye contact with them. He wouldn't break his eye contact with them until they signaled a thumbs up. See, Costa was a different kind of leader. Whereas I was focused on myself, Costa was focused on the people around him. He was focused on everybody else. He needed to make sure that everybody else was okay. In a lot of African languages, you may have heard this, but they have a word. Their word for hello is sawubona. And sawubona means, I see you. So they don't just say, hi, what's up? They say, I see you. And the response that the other person makes basically means, I am seen. Well, Costa wouldn't allow these people to just have their heads down. Even though everybody's going through this terrible time, he needed to make sure they were okay. And so he would say, I see you. And he wouldn't break his contact until they said, I am seen. I am a person. We kept driving farther, and I didn't know it at the time. I found out later, but this was actually Costa's village, where his family lived, where he lived. So these people were very important to him. Well, we passed one gentleman who has this big bundle on his back and his head's down, and Costa says, hey! And the guy doesn't even look up. And Costa hits the side of the truck, bang, bang, bang! Hey! Nothing. So Costa hits the side of the truck again, and the truck stops. The driver stops the truck, and Costa jumps out, and he runs back to this man. And I don't know what they said to each other, but I know that he grabbed him by his head, and he lifted his head up, and he looked him right in the eyes. And they just held there for 20, 30 seconds. And as he walked away, he said, thumbs up. And the guy gave him a thumbs up, lifted his head higher, and then kept walking. Costa got back in the truck. We drove away. I don't know if anybody else on the trip noticed that experience. And I don't even know that Costa would look back as that being any kind of important moment whatsoever. But for me, seeing someone lead in that way was really important. See, Costa had a good job. He had money. He was well off. It would have been easy for him. He could have moved out of that village. He could have moved into town. But he was with his people. And he wasn't going to let his people, his neighbors, his friends, be down. He had to know that they were okay. That's what a real leader does. They jump out of that truck. They get down on someone's level. They look him in the face. They tell him it's going to be all right. We're in this all together. And he doesn't break contact until he knows that that person feels that he cares about him. How is that different than the way that I led? It's 180 degrees in the other direction. I could have done what I was supposed to do, and I could have cared about the people in my boat, some who couldn't swim, some who were older than I was, some who I'm married to. I could have cared more about them and done the right thing to keep them safe rather than try to bring the glory on myself. I could have been more like Costa. Costa could care less about having the attention on himself. Costa's whole job was to build up other people and to make sure they were okay. So I hope that in this story you can see that there are different ways to lead. You don't have to be at the top of your company to lead. You don't have to own the business to lead. You don't have to be the captain of a team to lead. Anybody on any team in any organization can lead by making sure that the people around them are okay, by making sure that they're seen, by being a good example of doing what you're supposed to be doing, and by doing it in a way that builds people up. Not trying to draw attention, not trying to do things to get the promotion or the raise, but making sure that everybody's okay. That's a better kind of leadership. That's the kind of leadership that we need today. With everything that's going on in the world, we don't really need people to get in front and just talk and talk. We don't need leaders to get out in front and say, oh, this thing's overblown, it's not a big deal. People are scared. The type of leader we need right now is the one who will get out of the truck, get on the level of their people around them, look them in the eye and say, we're in this thing together. It's going to be okay. You can lean on me. Sometimes I'm going to need to be able to lean on you, but we're going to be okay together. I promise that if we can all try to develop that Costa-style leadership, right? That type of leadership where we try to lead without being the leader. We try to lead by caring and being part of the community and strengthening our group, our team, our community. That's the kind of leadership that will bring a lot of long-term success, happiness, appreciation, and just more tightly knit groups, tightly knit communities, tightly knit teams. And when you get teams and groups that are tightly knit together, when you've got leaders that are all looking to tighten those bonds between one another, incredible things can happen. Those kind of groups can get through anything. And when tough times come, they come out the other end stronger and better than before whatever tragedy it is, whatever hardship it was ever occurred. So, make a goal today to be a leader. Be a Costa-type leader. Look around you. Who are some people whose heads you could lift up? Who are some people that you could help to feel better? Who are some people that are scared, who don't know what's going to happen? Who could you lift up and say, it's going to be okay. We're going to do this together. As you do it, I know that you will feel rewarded. I know that you will feel strengthened. And I know that you will get to places that you didn't think you would get to coming through a hard time like this. So go out and lead in the best way that you know how to lead. And do it by bringing other people with you. I promise it'll be worth the effort. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.